We are here on invitation of Global Speakers Bureau, known as G-Speakers. Global Speakers is a worldwide speakers bureau network recognized on all continents with a wide range of exclusive speakers in many different fields. My name is Ismael Cala. I am a journalist, an author, an international speaker, also part of G-Speakers. Our guest today will discuss the impact of COVID-19 on the way we work and how to maintain healthy work-life balance. That's a question for every one of us. Attendees can ask questions in the Q&A bar, and some questions will be responded live here in the Q&A part of the event, at the last part of the event. And a lot of people were forced to switch to remote work. Many of us are in this group. If home office has been a struggle for you, you might have someone to help you out with this matter. Two well-known experts will share their tips and advice on how to maintain healthy work-life balance. But before starting, I really would like to ask all of you a question. What kind of legacy do you want to leave? We all can leave an indelible mark on this world. What do I want to be remembered for? How do I want to be known? How can I imprint my energy signature on the world? How can I celebrate my uniqueness? Well, let's say that we have two beautiful, amazing guests. The three of us are part of G-Speakers. And let me introduce you to the first one. Journalist, speaker, author, women's empowerment activist, influencer. Even with so many words, we cannot fully describe such a unique person as my dear Mariana Atencio. She is not afraid to speak on difficult topics, which she has often proved during her work as an international correspondent. Her TEDx talk, What Makes You Special, about authenticity and diversity, is among the top 10 most viewed TEDx talks online with 10 million views. Welcome, Mariana. Thank you for being here. And let me introduce you to the other wonderful guest that we have today. To accompany Mariana, we also invited mindful leadership and well-being expert Pandit Dasa. You may know him as an author of Urban Monk, a wise story of a rare and courageous soul who has timeless wisdom to share for the uncertain ways and paths of the 21st century. His inspirational speeches aim to create a more mindful workplace culture, which increases productivity and improves retention. Pandit, welcome to G-Speakers, this fabulous panel with both of you. And I wanna say, Mariana, as a woman, what additional challenges do you face when trying to acquire a work-life balance? Welcome.
Gracias, Isma. Welcome to all of you, everyone watching around the world. It is such a pleasure and honor to be joined by Pandit, a new friend that I'm making today, hosted by Ismael, a friend. I'm not going to say an old friend, Isma, because you're a lifelong friend and you are timeless. And I think this is such a pertinent issue, and I love the way you began the conference, Isma, with what is the kind of legacy that you want to leave behind. I think this pause made us all think that we're only here for a short time. So we want to leave the world better than we found it. We want to make changes and be an agent of change to imprint positive energy, as you said. And when talking about legacy, especially for women, I think the biggest challenge, and as a 30-something woman who's been a national correspondent, who is an immigrant because I came from my home country of Venezuela and now I call the US my home, who is also a millennial, who speaks Spanish and English, is on TV and on social media, the biggest challenge is all the hats that we have to wear. So juggling all these roles that are expected of us as women. And when I give conferences that are geared toward women, and I also include the guys because now we're seeing guys also do a lot of the work at home as well. So those roles are fluid more and more. But I always talk to women about the importance of being selfish. We think of selfishness as this bad word, but I always say, how can you love your neighbor if you don't know how to love yourself? If you don't ultimately know what you want for your life, there needs to be a space in all the hats that you wear between being a daughter and a sister and a wife and an employee and a mother, there needs to be a space there for you, for what really lights you up. Because if that doesn't exist, there will come a day where you will say, well, what is it that I'm leaving behind? You know, did I really do anything meaningful for me, right? And one of the exercises that I do during my virtual talks, which I have really literally transformed my home into a virtual studio, as I walk around my kitchen and I walk around my living room, and I talk to women about just saying out loud, what is it that you want authentically? And they have such a hard time coming up with what it is they want, that you know what is the device that I've sort of invented to elicit them to just say it out loud and scream it out loud. And I did this once at a physical keynote, and I'm doing it virtually now with amazing results. I have them sing happy birthday. I have my producers bring out a birthday cake. Everybody sings happy birthday to yourselves, and then out loud they say, my wish is this for myself. Because I always tell them, when you were 6 or 7 years old and you were blowing out the candles on your birthday cake, you only thought of one thing, of what you wanted. You didn't think about, I have to make my husband proud, or I have to take care of my parents, or I want my kids to learn virtually during this pause now that they're homeschooling. You only thought about, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be an actress. There were no limits to your dreams. And many of us women have to go back to that. So that is one of the big objectives during my talks, as I bring them back to this work-life balance.
That's wonderful, Mariana. That's wonderful. And you talked about dreams, and dreams are so important. And it's true, we have to be selfish. And that's exactly sometimes the words I use when people, especially women, and you're so right about it, you know, they care about their sons and daughters, but sometimes they forget about themselves. So it's really, really encouraging, the work that you are doing, and a happy birthday celebration is awesome. It's so like an experience. We are not talking only about the narrative in our mind. We are experiencing that celebration of happy birthday. So it's really amazing.
The good thing is that everybody knows the song, so that also helps.
Exactly. Pandit, I'm so thrilled to be here with you, because, you know, Mariana was mentioning dreams. And of course, I don't know, how do you become a monk? And that's my first question, because I'm burning with the desire of understand your dream.
So let me tell you one thing. Growing up, that was never part of my dream. I don't think anyone ever dreams to live without money and in poverty. Like, I don't think that's a dream that you have. I don't think any child's gonna say, yeah, I wanna grow up not having any money and just living a life of service. Like, everybody wants to live in a way that they become famous and they have money and then they get recognized. So that was also not part of my dream. It's a direction, you know, we have to realize that we may have certain dreams and then life has its own plans. And so that's what happened with me. So, you know, my parents migrated to the US in 1980. They came over with little to no money. Like literally no money. So one of the first things they did was they set up a small shop on Venice Beach, in Venice Beach, California, that boardwalk, selling gift items. So, you know, we were like poor immigrants. So they were working 7 days a week, like 12 hours a day. Within about a matter of about 8 years, they established a multi-million-dollar jewelry business. You know, had a house in the hills of Los Angeles. Like, we were living the American dream much faster than we expected. But then in the early 1990s, my parents' jewelry business and factory burnt down. We lost everything. We went completely broke, actually, from having nothing to everything and then back down again. And at this point, my dad decides to explore new business opportunities, and he flies out to post-communist Bulgaria in the early 1990s. Bulgaria had just come out of communism. He flies out there looking for new business opportunities. We leave LA behind for good. We pack up our bags, never to go back there again in the early 1990s. We're moving to Bulgaria, where no one speaks English. There's no internet, there are no basketball courts. Everything on TV is in Bulgarian and Russian. All the movies are 4 or 5 years old, because I don't think American movies were allowed during the communist regime. So here I am living in a place where I can't even have a conversation with someone, living behind the LA life. And so it was such a difficult and challenging time, because my world had literally just turned upside down. Like, literally turned upside down. Just imagine walking out the door of your house and no one speaks your language. You pick up the phone to talk to the operator, They don't speak English, right? No one spoke English. And so because it was so difficult and challenging, that's when I began my first inward journey, because I needed something to turn to for some relief. Like right now we have the internet, you know, you get bored, you're depressed, whatever, you turn on and watch Netflix and distract your mind. I had no distractions there, meaning that I had nothing to distract my mind. So I had to go inward to find peace and happiness. So that difficult time turned into a blessing because I was able to turn inward. So I started doing mindfulness. I started doing meditation. You know, most people go to like India or Thailand to learn meditation. I started doing it in Bulgaria, a little unusual place, but that's what life had planned for me. We spent a couple years there, moved back to the US, to the East Coast. My parents settled in Jersey. Then in 1999, I decided that I'm just going to go and practice meditation in a serious way. And I go off to India to live in a monastery. Obviously, there's a lot that happened in between each one of these things. And I'm sure there's a lot of questions coming up. A lot did happen. I'm just fast forwarding it. I go off in 1999 to live in a monastery in Mumbai, India, living with 40 monks, sleeping on a hardwood floor, waking up at 4 in the morning, meditating for hours a day, serving one another, serving the community. What was supposed to be 1 month ended up becoming 6 months because I fell in love with that life of simplicity, humility, and service. It was incredible. I just never experienced anything like that. Then I came back to the US, moved into a monastery in New York, and spent the next 14 and a half years living as a monk in New York City. And during that time, I was doing a lot of teaching and lecturing on college campuses around the country, but especially New York City, Columbia University, New York University. And again, this was not part of my dream. I didn't expect to become a monk. And then 5.5 years ago, after feeling like I had learned everything I could, I transitioned out of the monastic life. And now that since then, I've been speaking in companies and conferences and corporations on work-life balance, stress management, mindful leadership, workplace culture, and all of these types of wonderful topics. And of course, teaching people how to manage their mind and control their mind through mindfulness meditation practices. So that's my entire life story. And I think about 3.5 minutes or so, I don't know.
In a nutshell, and you did a great job, Pandit. And it's so fascinating because the world, more than ever right now, need these elements. You mentioned a life based on simplicity, on humility and service. And that's exactly when I was asking about legacy. And when we talk thanks to G speakers around the world with companies and audiences, you know, we talk about this, the new leadership style and the way that in this world right now, we are seeing finally the marriage between science and spirituality. And that will make us grow as human beings. And I think this is the solution looking forward to awaken our consciousness, to elevate our state of consciousness, and to be more in control of our energy, what we really are, who we are, and who we can help with our talents and our genius mind. So, Mariana, if you have to think about which are the peculiarities of this 21st century, which ones are the ones that can affect or improve work-life balance?
You were talking and so many light bulbs were going off in my mind about this marriage of science and spirituality, and you're absolutely right. I think that being present and being really in tune with your inner voice is one of the main things. Going into the 21st century, there's just so much noise. And one of the things that I've spoken to my community and my audiences about with the post-COVID world is, what did you learn? Because I'm always thinking about how my attendees can learn and grow. What did you learn during the pandemic that you want to take with you when we go back to normal life? I think one of the big things is turning the noise off, because the 21st century is characterized by a time when everybody's so plugged into this all the time, right? You are ordering food online, you're connected to Zoom meetings, you are on social media all the time. How can you be present and enjoy things like the sunrise? I teach my community online to really savor those fleeting moments, because we're so concerned about the future, Isma, all the time, you know? But human beings, for millions of years, we were hunter-gatherers. We lived in the present moment, in the now. when we turned into being an agricultural society, everything became about the harvest and about the future. But as we saw with the coronavirus, and now with what we're living through in the United States, we don't know what the future holds. The only time to take action is the present. So I like to teach my attendees that even if in the 21st century, one of the biggest challenges is the noise that we're surrounded with and trying to be everywhere, we have to learn to be present and to not leave things for the future and worry so much about the future, but to see how you can savor each minute of your day. And even if you dedicate it to just watching the water go by, you know, in a lake in front of your house, or breathing the fresh air, that's not a waste of time. That's actually really being in tune with the present moment and the now. One of the other challenges, though, that I like to teach my attendees about is that in the 21st century, everybody's a personal brand. I talk a lot about authenticity and the importance of telling your story. As someone who was the only Latina national correspondent at NBC News, I learned about the importance of telling my story, not only for me, but for everybody else in the community that I was representing on television, right? So telling your story creates ripple effects of empowerment for other people who see you, who see Pandit, who see me, and see themselves in us because they see representation. And when you tell your story and you become a personal brand on your own terms, that is incredibly powerful in the 21st century. The thing that people have to wrap their head around is, well, you know, I see you, Mariana, some of my attendees tell me, and you're a journalist, you're a public figure, you're a viral TED speaker. I'm not that. I'm not a brand. And I tell them, you are. People are so saturated with noise that when they log on to the internet and they Google you and they go into your LinkedIn and they see your social media, in seconds, they're making decisions as to who you are, employers, customers, clients, future dates that you're gonna go on. So in a matter of seconds, they're making these decisions. So you have to learn to see yourself, no matter if you are an accountant, a lawyer, the ice cream man across the street. I mean, even my dog has its own Instagram account, right? So see yourself as a personal brand and make sure that the values that you stand for are aligned on everything on social media and in the internet, and make sure that your story, going back to the importance of your story, is weaved and reflected in that personal brand online. So those are all exercises that I walk through during these hour-long virtual experiences that I've created during the COVID crisis, and now in the post-COVID world here from my home.
Awesome guidelines, Mariana. And I was thinking, because you're right, when we listen, you know, Larry King, in one of those great interviews that I had the opportunity to host for over 5 years, almost 6 years on CNN in Español, Larry King told me something that, you know, was like kind of the turning point in my career, because he said, Ismael, I never learned anything while I was talking. So that's why when listening to Pandit, listening to you, I say, oh my God, that's a powerful idea. And you actually talking about personal brand and how fearful some people are to say, no, I'm not a brand. You are a brand, or the CEO is a brand. No, we are all personal brands. And actually, I remember an anecdote that was the origin, Pandit, Mariana, for one of my keynote presentations into corporations, talking to collaborators or employees. And it's called in Spanish, El negocio de ser tú. In English is the business of being you. And it was because of the headline of an article that a Peruvian journalist wrote about me. And he wrote, Ismael Cala, the business of positivism. And the intention was not that kind of positive, you know what I mean? And I said, well, what is the word that is bothering me? Business? Well, I have to be a business. And it has to be a good business, not only for me, for society, for everyone. So now companies are looking for people that are entrepreneurs. And to be an entrepreneur is what you said, Mariana. We have to have initiative, and we have to be a personal brand that is adding value to the brand that we are collaborating with. So it's amazing what is happening right now. And actually, Pandit, I want to go back to you, because now we are working from home. And what are some challenges that you are discovering with your work people are experiencing while working from home?
Well, you know, I think there was a time that we all dreamed about working from home. I just don't think that we wanted to work at home in the way that we are now. You know, life is like that. You want something, you get it, but it doesn't look exactly the way that you hoped it would, you know? Whether it's a relationship or it's a car or a house, it's like, okay, you've got the house, but there's too much traffic here. So I think we all wanted to work from home, or maybe a lot of us dreamed of it, but not like locked down with your kids and spouse and pets and everyone's in the same area. So, I mean, that is one of the challenges that everyone is facing, is that, you know, especially if they have kids and a whole family there, because now kids aren't going to school. So you have to teach the kids, which is a full-time job. And then if there's a spouse, you got to get attention to the spouse, which is also can be a full-time job. And then you have your work, which requires 8 to 10 hours of your attention and time. And so that in itself is creating a lot of stress. That's what I'm noticing when I've been doing a lot of webinars for different companies like Kellogg and Citibank, that they're just saying that their employees are really, really stressed because they have so much more responsibility right now, because there's no boundary anymore. Before, you eat breakfast and you go to work and you leave your home behind. And then when you're finished with work, you leave your work behind and you go home. You physically just get in the car or get on the train and you go home. So there's an act of putting something behind you. That act's no longer there. You could be sitting in your sweatpants on the dining table while you're eating breakfast all the way through till you're eating dinner. So people are working more. And there may also be certain pressures that they're experiencing, some, not always, from management, thinking that maybe the people aren't doing enough because they're at home. So that also requires a little bit more trust in your workforce. But I think one of the things that people, we don't have those boundaries. Those boundaries are really blurred. When does work begin and when does it end? And especially if you're living in like a New York City, and it's like a small apartment, your bed's here and your desk is like 8 feet away. You don't even have a separate room to go into. Like people who have homes, what I recommend is, try to set up your workspace in a very separate environment than everything else if you can. So that when you can feel like I'm walking away from this and now I'm going to be with my family, right? Mm-hmm. So that's one major thing. And people, of course, now we're plugged so much into our devices. I'm letting people know that, it's really important while we're at home that our lifestyle stays healthy. That means that we're getting enough sleep, that we're disconnected. Don't send emails while sitting in bed, because now you've brought that work energy into your bed. And, a lot of our phones have these like blue lights that kind of, they actually prevent the body from producing melatonin, which helps us fall asleep. So we can cut out the blue light in our phone and disconnect from our devices a good couple hours before going to bed. Dim the lights, do something relaxing, maybe like do some meditation, listen to some calming, soothing music. Make sure you're getting a good night's sleep and not you're just overworking yourself. And also being at home, it also means that we're maybe just sitting much longer. So I'm recommending, why don't you stand while working? If you're on a phone call that doesn't require video, maybe you can walk back and forth during your phone call. Like I do that quite a bit, just walking back and forth, just a way to keep moving, and also making sure that we're eating healthy, because, you open up the laptop and you open up a bag of chips, because at home we may have a bunch of junk food all over the place. So we want to be careful. We want to plan our meals. And the thing is that all of these things, healthy eating, movement and physical exercise, getting a good night's sleep, having positive relationships, all of these things help us reduce stress and anxiety. Stress and anxiety isn't just reduced by one activity, because let's say you love jogging and you can jog miles a day and you did it, but then you have horrible relationships with your colleagues and your family. It can't just be one or the other. Okay, I'm a jogger, I'm an exerciser. Yeah, but I have horrible relationships. Or eating unhealthy foods is going to stress out your body. So I think that work-life balance has to be looked at as a holistic approach, in that looking to see what we're eating, how we're sleeping, what's our relationships like, are we moving enough, are we doing something for our mind, as Mariana was saying, that turning off that noise. What I always like to say is that, there's traffic in the streets right now is lower than ever before because people are quarantined. But one place on the planet where the traffic has stayed the same or increased? Right there. Our mind, the traffic in our mind has not gone down even one bit, even though the traffic outside has completely stopped. So what that tells us is we cannot control the traffic outside of us, but we have full control of the traffic inside of us. And the sooner we learn to control this traffic, then we can be happy, even if it's a pandemic, a hurricane, and an earthquake happening all at the same time. But if we don't have this traffic under control, even if everything is peaceful, we can be totally stressed out and anxious because our mind is out of control.
I love every single word that you said and you used, Pandit, because I have to tell you, a little bit of my personal story is coming from understanding how my brain was working as a kid and as a youngster, because I'm coming from a family with schizophrenia, mental illnesses, and I was medicated when I was 15. And guess what? Meditation saved my brain, my mind, my life.
Wow.
Because I really was able to take control of those sensations. And, you know, at a point, I thought that I was going to end up like my father.
Wow.
Or in suicides, like my grandfather, my aunt, and several other relatives in my family. So what you're saying is such an important topic in this situation that I remember that I read that the dean of the Harvard Health faculty said that she didn't understand why during the COVID crisis, we didn't emphasize how to teach people to meditate. So I'm telling you, today we're going to end this session with an experience. You are going to lead us through meditation because this is neuroscientifically proven that can change the structure of the brain. It changes the way you think and see and process life. So obviously, you know, I have a phrase because I used to suffer from anxiety when I was young. And I got a phrase from Jodi Picoult. It's an author, and she said, anxiety is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you very far. And a lot of people are suffering from anxiety as a post-traumatic consequence of COVID-19. So Mariana, what have you learned from COVID regarding work-life balance?
Thank you. I'm like taking notes. I love everything that you guys said as well. When you said Pandit talked about natural disasters and all that, that's very familiar to me because almost like you trained to be a monk, I trained to be a breaking news journalist. For over 10 years, my job at the national level in Spanish and in English was to go cover earthquakes, mass shootings, hurricanes.
Wow.
So I learned to talk to people in the worst day of their lives, probably, day after day, when they lost everything and sometimes even loved ones. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about what I learned from them during COVID because I almost said that my job has prepared me for this moment. It's incredible because all of these human beings that I interviewed during all of these tragedies, most of them showed me incredible displays of kindness and resilience and forgiveness. Most of them surged ahead. So what I learned from them and what I applied during the pandemic and now in this post-COVID world is the ones that turned the corner fastest were the ones that accepted what was happening quicker and without resentment. I think that the time has passed to kind of stop wishing that this would go away. When we say, oh, can't life go back to the way it was? That's like me interviewing a family that lost their home, but them saying, I wish the hurricane would have changed course. We're past that point. We need to face this new world head on and develop the tools to adapt and to, I don't even call it reinvent ourselves. I call it reimagine. I want us to reimagine the world and intentionally make it better. And the first way you do that, since I am a storyteller after all, is with words. What I learned, Isma, for work-life balance, and Pandit, as you say, when we are in a very teeny tiny space where we eat and where we work and where we sleep and where we have all our relationships, the first thing to reimagine that space and to reimagine our lives is the way that we manifest it through words. So I talk a lot about when you say, I'm stuck at home. I talk my attendees through saying, I can spend more time at home than ever before. I'm having the same thing for lunch every day. Try saying, I had an amazing turkey sandwich for lunch today, and I might probably have it again tomorrow. I even invented something for my virtual speeches. And last year I spoke at Citi Private Bank, I spoke at LinkedIn, I spoke at Spotify. I just gave 2 conferences at Microsoft where I invented something called the alphabet of positivity. So I'm gonna do it, Isma, with you now. Let me test you.
Great.
Let's start with the letter A, and I want you to tell me one positive adjective or word with the letter A. I'm gonna start with amazing. Can you think of another?
For me, it came acceptance.
Beautiful. I'm going to continue with authentic. Can you think of another one?
Awesome.
There you go. So we walk through the whole alphabet, and that's what I do with attendees. And it's almost like you have to develop a new vocabulary for the new world.
It's wonderful. I love that initiative and that idea, Mariana. You are brilliant. And Pandit, I'm so blessed that Lucas and the team at G Speakers put us together. So Pandit, you know, coaching CEOs and actually a lot of leaders during this quarantine that I kind of created a branded concept of productive quarantine, because, you know, we are not bears to hibernate and to get fatter during the quarantine because of COVID. No. And I realized that for a lot of people, they were having different experiences about productivity and overall collaboration and communication between teams during the pandemic. So I would like to actually hear your point of view. How is it impacting productivity and collaboration and communication between teams, this current situation?
Yeah, so, you know, one thing is, I think because we're all doing these virtual meetings, people are getting to know a little bit more about each other, because the moment you log on, you start checking out each other's living rooms. You know, you start seeing other things. Someone's kid shows up, someone's pet shows up, someone's, you know, the other day I was on a call with someone, and they're like, dog started barking. And it just, I think it's making us become much more relatable to each other. You know, not always, but I'm seeing this happen. You get to see someone in their normal home situation, and you get to know them a little bit more because of, again, you're seeing where they live to some degree, and you're seeing their kids, you're seeing their family members show up and things like that. So that is adding a whole new personal side to meetings. Because, you know, think about it, in a conference room, in an office, you know, everybody is just their like office self. But now you get to see a little bit of the personal, the home self of individuals, which I think may be helping break down some barriers. So we're not as stiff anymore, because, you know, in the office, everyone's a little bit more stiff and just ready to do business. But at home, maybe you're, you know, you're wearing a nice shirt, and then you maybe were wearing shorts. And so, you know, your clothes also keep you a little bit more relaxed, right? So I think people are a little bit more relaxed, and that is allowing for people to get to know one another in a slightly different capacity. Because let's say if there's a conflict in the workplace, and you only see that person a certain way, but now that you get to see a more human side of them, a more casual, relaxed side, it helps break down some of the barriers that we've had, our unconscious biases that we hold towards that person, maybe because there was a conflict. You never see them outside of that setting, but now we are. And once you see somebody outside of that setting, it helps to, sometimes it's helping renew those relationships. And so I think there are many great things coming out of this pandemic that we are in. I know obviously there's a lot of people are suffering. There's also a lot of good things coming out of it. And this could be one of those things, is that we're getting to see people slightly differently, you know? And what I'm always encouraging is like, and whether when I'm doing a speech on stage or whether it's virtual, I'm encouraging people that, you know, before you jump into your meetings, why don't you just like take a moment to think about who else is going to be in that meeting and appreciate one quality about each person that's going to be in that meeting. Because there's a good chance there's someone in there you don't see eye to eye with, someone you don't get along with, maybe you've had some conflict. And, you know, whenever we have a conflict with someone, that has a much stronger impression on our mind than the good that they do. Somebody can do 10 good things for you. The moment you do something, one bad thing, for the next 10 years, you're going to remember that one bad thing. And you'll have to force yourself to remember the good things, but the bad one just kind of is like a spotlight. That's just how our mind works, unfortunately. We can retrain it, but that's how it works right now. Mm-hmm. So I encourage people that, before you get onto that meeting, take a moment to think about who's going to be on that meeting and think positively about each person. Think about their contributions, what they're doing to help the team. Because, we kind of look at ourselves a lot in that, oh, look what I've done for this company. Look how much value I'm bringing. Look how much productivity I'm bringing. Because of me, this is happening. Because of me. Okay, but let's stop that me conversation. There's others as well. And I think, and I encourage, individuals in these corporate environments to think of other people. The more you think of others, the better you'll be able to have a relationship with them, and the better the communication will be, and they'll feel it. Because then during the meeting, you might say, oh yeah, hey, I really appreciated what you did, and I really appreciated what you did. And I imagine if you're starting to appreciate all these people, then naturally it's going to come back to you. Like recently, I was just doing this one webinar, I believe it was for Citibank, and there was about 600-700 people on the call. And I said, I'm going to encourage everyone within the next week to appreciate, either by text or phone or email, one of your colleagues, at least one or two of your colleagues in the next week. And I said, imagine if all these 600 people are reaching out to hundreds of people and appreciating. Just imagine how that's going to transform the culture of your workplace. Imagine how that's going to transform your relationship with those individuals. We don't, creating positivity in a workplace is something we have the power to do, whether we are in a leadership position or not. We can choose to be positive. We can choose to appreciate. We can choose to be grateful. And then we send that energy out, and we can really improve the collaboration and communication and teamwork, even though we're working virtually.
That's really, really powerful, Pandit. And it's true. There is no I in the word team. So we have to create that collective, intelligent organism, and appreciation is the antidote. Because, I was thinking, it's true. Sometimes we go to a meeting and we go to the meeting thinking that we have to be defensive. And if you appreciate, we are all connected and all in love. So that's wonderful. Mariana, as a Latina immigrant, which qualities or particularities exist in our community? I am a Latino as well, to achieve a work-life balance.
I think that we are all beautiful in our diversity. I'm in love with Pandit's story and his family story. I'm in love with your story, Isma. I think that our world is just so beautifully diverse that we have to celebrate it and celebrate what each of us brings to the table. So going back to the analogy that we're all establishing about the business meeting, a really important thing for me as the Latina national correspondent at NBC News when I was there, a big thing for me as also one of the few viral TEDx speakers that is a woman, that is Latina and an immigrant, is how can I show up to that business meeting as my most authentic self? Understanding that authenticity is a choice that you make every single minute of every day. You just don't wake up one day and all of a sudden you're authentic. No, it's a choice that you make when you choose what to wear in the morning. It's a choice that you make in those business meetings and in those rooms when people ask you, how do you pronounce your name again? And you say, Maria, Mariana, Mariana. For me, being on television, pronouncing my name was one of the biggest struggles. And it might seem simple, a name, but it took me 10 years of national television experience to go from saying, my name is Mariana, coming to you live, and trying to blend in, right? Even changing my name, the source of my power, to then saying 10 years later, this is Mariana coming to you live, and realizing that it's about much more than this Mariana. It's about all the other Marianas and all the other people that have felt different at times, but that see you and say, she made it and she didn't have to change who she was to be in that room and in those meetings. So for me as a Latina immigrant is really important, and for everybody in corporate culture and everybody who has a story that's different, who has felt different, who has been like Pandit at places where people spoke a different language, you have to choose authenticity when you walk in those rooms and realize that you are then making space for other people like you when you leave the room and when you leave that business table.
Wow, that's wonderful, Mariana. And that's why we are G speakers, because global speakers, we're coming from every corner of this wonderful planet, every color, every race, every faith, and we are all the same beautiful creatures. So it's wonderful. I was, you know, like kind of laughing inside of my mind because it's true. Some of our names, it's a struggle when you have to introduce yourself to somebody because you say Ismael. In my case, is Ismael, and people said smile, and I said, well, yes, smile. And some other people say smell. No, I smell. No, I don't like that. I smell. It's kind of stinky. So I prefer smile. If you prefer smile, so a lot of people in English they call me Smile, and I love it because I would love to smile even more than I do right now. So Pandit, do you have any problem with your name?
I say, you know, people, I've been called all kinds of things. The worst that I've been called is somebody replaced the P with a B and called me bandit accidentally. I said, no. That was a monk. I wasn't a bandit. It's pundit. It's like political pundit without the political.
Wow, that's a good word to make sense. Okay, so Pandit, since people in general are more anxious and stressed due to the uncertainty of the pandemic, what are some things that we can do in terms of self-care? And I actually would like to ask you as well, do companies feel this is too spiritual and not appropriate for a corporate environment, or the world is changing around it?
Well, so the way I present work-life balance, you know, I present it from a research point of view. So it's, you know, of course, I come from a monastic background and I practice mindfulness in a more spiritual way. The way I teach it in companies is not spiritual. It's very secular. And, you know, there's always people in the audience that aren't sure if it's spiritual, like, okay, is he going to do the monk thing now? What's he going to do? What are we going to do? They get a little anxious. So I start, you know, I quote passages from different articles. Like, for example, there's an article in Forbes that said, mindfulness makes you more productive. How does that do that? Well, in my example is like, you know, when you have too many apps open on your device, it slows down. So we have 1 million apps up here. And so I tell them that I'm going to help you close out those apps. So you can just leave open the ones that you need to leave open, and then you'll get more done. And there's another article in New York Times that says it enhances creativity and memory. Psychology Today says it decreases anxiety, depression, and stress. The Harvard Business Review says it improves emotional intelligence. And how important is that when we're working with people of different backgrounds, different cultures, different perspectives, different angles? It helps us put ourselves in other people's shoes. So then, you know, people in management, I tell them that, you know, if people are maybe not producing to the level that you expect, find out what's going on in their life without just jumping to the conclusion that they're not productive and we should get rid of them. I'm like, no, find out, have you taken the time to find out what's happening in their life? So I approach mindfulness from a research-based perspective. And then some of the exercises that we'll be doing in a few minutes, some of the exercises I guide are things like deep breathing, right? So no matter what faith, what religion you are, you breathe. So I'm just going to teach you how to do it in a slightly different way and a deeper way. Focusing, how to increase your focus, because our mind is like a windshield wiper, you know, like this, kind of always like this. So I'm like, I'm just going to help you focus a little more. We're already doing that. Gratitude, we all know that that's good for us. So these are the different things that I kind of guide and, you know, talk about and guide people through. You know, the biggest audience I did this for was about 2,000 people. It was through a webinar, and it was at one SHRM conference. It was about 1,300 people in the audience. Had everyone close their eyes. No one expected that at an HR conference, we're going to be meditating. But people absolutely loved it, because what a lot of people came up to me and told me is like, wow, I feel so much more clear to go attend the next talk now. So even though it was 7-8 minutes, it cleared their mind, it rejuvenated them, and it allowed them to focus for the next event. So I don't approach it in a corporate environment from a spiritual perspective. I approach it from a secular one. If someone wants to have a personal conversation with me, I'm happy to dive deep into the spiritual aspect of it.
That's wonderful. And you are talking about the mind, and the best metaphor that I kind of read once, and I kept it for me, is that the mind is like a drunken monkey jumping from branch to branch in a tree. So we have to help that monkey to calm down.
Yeah.
And this is scientific. Mariana, one last question before we let Pandit guide us into a meditation and into a wonderful experience to end up this fabulous panel. What type of keynotes do you give centered around the topics authenticity, productivity, and work-life balance?
So I've really focused my keynote work. I sort of started from scratch during COVID because I said this new world needs, we just have to rethink the kind of content that we're providing because the world changed. I really do believe that. My new keynote that I'm super excited about is called Reimagine Yourself Now. As I said, we don't need to reinvent our cities as they are reopening. We don't need to reinvent our lives as we go back to work. We need to reimagine and make them better. And they're focused on 3 pillars, which is the first one, figuring out what are the ingredients to your secret sauce. So those things that make you who you are, that are the tools that you have to work with. For example, in your case, Ismael, your family history of mental illness, that is a challenge that you overcame as a young person that makes you who you are. And you have to learn how to talk about it as you do, because that is also going to empower you to let other people talk about the challenges that they have overcome as well. So what are the tools that you have to work with? The things that you may not want to talk about or vocalize, that you may feel shy about, or even want to hide under the rug sometimes, but that make you your beautiful self. For a lot of people, that can also be something as simple as an accent or the pronunciation of their names. So owning that, the secrets to your sauce is like the formula to Coca-Cola, right? It's the formula to your success. That's the first part of my new keynote. The second part is reimagining the world through your story, right? The importance of getting to know your story, because I always say, someone that doesn't know their story, it's like a nation that doesn't know their history. They don't know where they're going. So as a journalist for my entire life, as a best-selling author, as a TED speaker, it was in knowing my story that I was able to really take my career to the next level and become successful. So I walk attendees through writing down their story and writing down what are the themes, the junctures, the moments where your story changed to make you learn, why did I end up here, you know, at this G Speaker Summit right now? It helps you just have a clearer path to where you're going. And the third, which is my favorite pillar of the presentation, is it's the birthday cake. You know, it's figuring out what you want, because when you know the ingredients to your secret sauce, when you know your story, it's almost like you have a beautiful red convertible Ferrari parked outside your house. So then I ask people, where are you going to take it now? What is the next great chapter of your journey that begins today? And that is all about not feeling guilty about what we want. The last thing that I'll end with today is something that has been incredibly helpful to me during the pandemic that I'm definitely going to keep going forward. And I talk my attendees through, and it's the importance of rituals. Rituals to achieve our goals. Sometimes we think a ritual has to be like a big thing. You know, you're going to light a bonfire and meditate for 3 hours. No, a ritual can be something as simple as a prayer when you are waking up in the morning, or taking control of your life by listening to the same song as you get out of bed, or planning a routine for yourself where you are in the driver's seat. The biggest lesson for me after this pandemic is we may think that the pandemic is controlling the narrative. Now we may think that what's happening in the United States is controlling the narrative. No, you are in control. You are in the driver's seat. You are choosing what is the song you're going to dance to and curating the playlist to your life.
Wonderful, beautiful. Thank you, Mariana. And in order to close this conversation, I would like to invite Pandit to show us a little bit into the practice of the mindfulness that you bring into corporations with your workshops and your keynotes, so that we can live it as an experience right now.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. So I'd like to start by just asking that, you know, maybe everybody can just silence their smart devices, because we know if it starts to buzz, it's hard for us to not reach towards it. It's like a magnet that pulls us. So if we can silence that. And let's sit comfortably and close our eyes. And I'll guide you through a variety of focusing and breathing exercises. So go ahead and close your eyes and sit comfortably. And from wherever your mind is wandering, because we have so much going on in our mind at any given moment, I want you to bring all of your awareness to the weight of your feet, pushing down into the floor. And this is a great exercise in helping us increase our concentration. Keep all of your attention on the weight of your feet, on the place where they touch the floor, and try not to think of anything else. And bring your awareness to the weight of your body, pushing down into the chair that you're sitting on, and keep all of your attention on that one point where your body's touching the chair. And you'll notice that your mind probably is already starting to get distracted. You're starting to plan or think about the past. Become aware of your hands and fingers and how they're situated. Now let's begin to take a few deep breaths. I want you to breathe in such a way that you fill up your lungs completely and straighten your back as you inhale. It's not the kind of deep breathing we generally do, but the kind of breathing we need to do more of. And as you exhale, I want you to breathe out any tension you're holding in your face. I want you to relax your forehead, relax your eyes, which get really stressed by looking at screens all day long. Relax your face, your mouth. Let your mouth drop down. Let your tongue drop down to the bottom of the mouth. Let your face relax completely. Take another really deep breath in. Again, fill up your lungs completely. With each inhalation, you should be able to take in a little bit more breath because your lungs have had a chance to expand. And as you exhale, let your shoulders drop down. Release the tension in your chest, your back. Take another full deep breath in, fill up your lungs completely. This time as you exhale, breathe out any tension you're holding in your arms and your fingers, relaxing your legs, relaxing your feet. Now your entire body is completely relaxed. Now take the next 3 deep breaths only through your nasal passages. Maybe a little challenging. You might notice that one side of your nasal passage is more open than the other. The next 3 breaths, take them just through the nasal passages and feel the cool breath going in through the nasal passages. And as you exhale through the nasal passages, notice that the exhalation is warmer than the inhalation. So the ingoing breath is cool and the outgoing breath is warm. So just focus on that for a moment. Staying focused just on the breath, trying not to plan, trying not to think about the past. The body's becoming a little bit more relaxed with each deep breath. These kinds of deep breathing exercises help us regulate our emotions, helps us regulate our blood pressure. Bring your awareness into the region of your mind. And now I want you to become aware of 3 things on your mind that may be troubling you. Just become aware of those 3 things. Don't engage with them. Observe them from a distance like you would observe fish inside of a fish tank, from a distance. Almost as if they're not your thoughts. Now take a deep breath in. As you exhale, I want you to breathe out all of the things you just recognized that may be troubling you. It's like closing out the apps. Let everything go. Let your mind relax. Lighten your mind, emptying out your mind, clearing out the traffic. And now bring your awareness down into the region of the heart. See if you can take a moment to pick up on the actual beating of the heart. This will require a lot of focus. See if you can pick up on the heartbeat just by sitting very still. Staying focused. Now that we're in the space in the heart, I want you to think of 3 things that have happened very recently in your life that you're grateful for. They don't have to be big things. They could be very simple and small things, things that we take for granted perhaps. What are 3 things that are happening in your life right now that you're grateful for? When we remember things that we're grateful for, our mood changes, and that immediately affects our health. And this is something we have the power to do. We don't depend on anyone else to feel grateful. And now I want you to appreciate someone in your life, one of your colleagues that has encouraged you, inspired you, supported you. Appreciate their presence in your life and wish them well in their endeavors. And now I want you to think of someone that you're working with now or in the past that you might have had some conflicts with, that you didn't see eye to eye with. I want you to try really hard to appreciate some of their good qualities and their contributions. I know this is a little harder, but try your very best to do that. It's so important that we can shift our mindset towards people that we don't get along with. That's what's really called being mindful. And now I want you to wish them well in their endeavors. And I want you to take one more deep breath in, fill up your lungs completely. Exhale thoroughly and completely, and bring your awareness to your eyes. And millimeter by millimeter, very slowly, very gradually, begin to open your eyes. Very slowly. So, welcome back, everyone. As you can see, it doesn't have to be a 30-minute, 60-minute thing. It can take, what I recommend is if you do 2 to 3 minutes of this every day. I mean, we eat 3 meals a day. So why not nourish our mind 2 to 3 times a day if it only means a couple minutes of a few breathing exercises, feeling grateful and appreciating someone. It can be as simple as that. You don't have to be a monk to be mindful.
That's wonderful, amazing. Wow, what an energy shift for the better, for the positive, amazing, for that serenity that we need to have to make better decisions in times of a VUCA world, volatile, ambiguous, uncertain, and complex. And the uncertainty is probably here to stay. So we have to create that faithful and confident state and the calmness. And thank you so much, Pandit, for that wonderful experience. Thank you, Mariana. Thank you so much. And I have to say, as the moderator for this wonderful conversation, I'm thrilled. I will continue with my day knowing that this is already an unforgettable day because I talked to you guys. So thank you so much. Thank you, Lucas, for the wonderful opportunity to host this panel and global speakers, the family that the 3 of us belong to as speakers, bringing into corporations this wonderful and relevant content that the world needs right now. So thank you so much and see you next time. We'll have to do this again.
Yes,
thank
definitely.
you.
Thank you so much, Ismael, Global Speakers Pandit. As you say, this is already a blessing for our day. I appreciate all of you because the world needs more of you in our lives, and to everybody that tuned in, thank you for your time. Time is the most valuable non-renewable resource we have. So thank you for spending a little bit of it with us. I want to do a social media wave, everybody. Say hi to everybody on social media. Hi.
Hello world. Thank you, Mariana. Thank you, Pandit.
Thank you both very much. Thank you.
See you soon.
Yes, looking forward.